start the video with an intention. I wish that I perfect these camera settings for this video and that you all have a lovely day and enjoy the video. I'm a lot more nervous about messing up in this video. I think it's because in my last video, if you guys watched it, do make sure you do, I tested this camera out for the first time. It's definitely a learning curve, but I messed up in quite a lot of it because the whole freaking thing was zoomed in. Now I realise it's because I had a setting on and it meant that like it crops you in. I don't know. Either way, I brought you out into the outside again because I thought it would be a really nice little backdrop for you. I've had this topic on my mind a little bit recently and I thought it would be really interesting to open up a conversation on my comment section and we could discuss it together because it was Pansexual Awareness Day recently and I'm not going to be talking about pansexuality, although that is a massive part of my identity and I'm really proud to be pansexual. Sorry, but look at the view. It's a little stop and check. It's important. It's good for your soul to be in the present moment. Demisexuality is actually going to be the topic of discussion in this video because I thought it would be really cool for us fellow demisexuals to chat about our feelings towards the sexuality, what that means to us, because I feel like it's an umbrella term for a lot of different types of individuals and it means something different to everybody. I'd like to talk about how I kind of arrived at the decision of being a demisexual, how I discovered that. Oh my God. There's bunny rabbits. Can you see the baby bunnies? Oh, they're gone. I don't blame them, to be honest. But even if you're not demisexual, I think this should be a conversation for anyone who is dating one or knows one or is just interested in maybe discovering themselves or is just generally quite curious. So let's chat. Whoa, look at all the intentions we could be setting with all of these are they dandelion? What are these things even called? I can't remember. Either way, I'm gonna let you guys make a wish. You doing it? Are you doing it? Apparently, if you put those in water, they come out bone dry. Fun fact of the day. I would say here's probably a nice little spot to sit as it's quite shaded from the wind. I don't think it would be so windy today. Oh, and there's always lovely sounding birds around here as well. Can you hear that? Question, do birds attack bunny rabbits? Because it sounds like there is something really scary happening in that bush. Well, here's a cute little area I've just found, but I'm now scared because I feel like there's actual murder happening in the other bush and I'm just ignoring it. I actually decided to move myself, to shimmy myself away from the little catastrophe in the bush there. Remove myself from that scary little location because I genuinely think I was just witnessing lots of birds having a fight. All I literally could do was cough to try and distract them from one another so they would run away. But even that wasn't distracting them, so I was like, okay, well, they've obviously got some shit to do. It's fine, little birdies, you do your circle of life shenanigans. I actually forgot my tripod, so you're in a weird position. You're probably going to see a lot of double chins in this angle, but ironically, that's okay because the topic of this video that I want to talk about actually goes against all things external, and we really focus on the internal when we talk about demisexuality, because demisexuality is something that really embraces and embodies and celebrates the, I want to say, more important parts of ourselves as human beings. And to me, demisexuality has always made the most sense because obviously sexuality is all about our connections with one another and our love interests and the people we choose to spend time with, and it's our souls kind of coming together to, oh my god, I think I just saw a dolphin. Ugh, fly. To me, it's just made the most sense for that reason, because ultimately what demisexuality is, in a nutshell, only being able to feel some sort of sexual attraction or have a crush when you get to know who they are as a person. And I know a lot of people hear that and they say, that sounds nice. It's a bit like my pansexual identity. A lot of people say, oh, that sounds nice. Like, because basically I'm pansexual too. And I think pansexual and demisexual actually work quite similarly together, which I think is probably why I fit in both of those categories. I've made a whole video about being pansexual down there if you're interested, you want to click on that. But that's similar because pansexual is you don't fall in love with a gender, you just fall in love with people, no matter what they identify themselves as. If you like them, if you vibe with them, if you feel good around their body, around their existence, you're going to want to hang out with them and you're probably going to want to date them. Demisexual is very similar. It's more on the sexual talk though, because you can't, as a demisexual, feel some sort of sexual drive towards people who you don't know or have parts of their personality that you don't like or you don't gel well with, because you wouldn't find a demisexual person having a one-night stand. You wouldn't find them sleeping with someone too quickly unless you get to know someone really quickly and, you know, by day one of knowing them, they're such a great person that you just want to sleep with them, and it's very overwhelming because they're such a sexy person when it comes to personality. That's when you might find a demisexual person having sex quite soon. But typically we find it really hard to separate people from sex. And I remember as a kid thinking that was normal. I thought that was how relationships and sex worked. I guess because when you grow up, your mum and your dad and your teachers tell you that when two people love each other very much, they have sex. And I guess that is what you're taught, but then the reality is sex is sometimes just fun on the surface level, which it is, I understand that. But there can be some actual like physical blockages for a lot of demisexual people, and there is for me. Like I physically, like my body physically struggles to relax and let the act of sex happen unless I have this chemistry and attachments to the person that I really like respect, if you get what I'm saying. So as much as it sounds like it is a mental thing, I guess, because then the mental stuff affects your body physically, but it also can come out in physical forms as well, which is why I've been thinking about it a lot recently, because in a sense it does sort of affect your sex drive. This is something that I want to discuss with fellow demisexuals out there if you're watching, whether you believe that your sex drive is affected and your relationships are affected because of how high your requirements are as a person. Because obviously a lot of couples, they can maybe toss emotions to a side, or like they're having a stressed out day and they can just be like, you know, I just need to let it out. Or like people have sex when their relationship, I mean, my relationship's incredible in every way, shape and form. It's one of the biggest blessings in my life. But because I'm a demisexual, I feel like my moods and my emotions and my attitudes and like the chemistry and the vibe and the energy that I'm feeling really affects my sexual side. So I'll be really interested to know whether this is like a common thing, because it's not always as great as it seems. It sounds nice, like, oh, that makes sense that you obviously would, but it does sometimes get in the way, I would say. And I know a load of people who have said that makeup sex, for example, they love it because it's like animalistic, I guess, and it's like a different, it's sex on a different kind of level, and it's very like empowering and whatnot. But for me, I'm telling you, that sort of stuff can't happen to me, because how can somebody who is only like sexually interested in someone who they feel like a very intense attraction to in that very moment and craves that peaceful energy and strong love and interest, how can someone like that, like how can someone who's in the middle of being pissed off at someone, or in the middle of an argument, or in the middle of making up after having a big argument, want to sleep with that person? Like, it just doesn't go hand in hand. But then again, demisexuality is like a massive umbrella, so I'd love to know whether maybe some of you guys might disagree with that. There might be a lot of you that are like, well, actually for me, I can, because I know my partner outside of the argument or outside of the situation. Something I noticed about myself when all of my friends were talking about crushes and magazines, like all the kids magazines were always talking about crushes, like which celebrity guy looks really hot and fit, and like I remember having this obsession of finding my crush, right? And the hilarious thing was, they were like soap actors, so people from Coronation Street. I always used to crush on guys from Coronation Street, And then I also, a massive chunk of everyone I ever crushed on as a kid were gay men, gay guys in celebrity culture or just like from TV soaps or something. And I remember my mum thinking, well, all of the guys I was crushing on, they're like well groomed, well looked after, you know, they like to look after their skin and hair and nails and stuff, and maybe that was why. So that was as a kid, right? Like I wasn't conscious about them being gay. I didn't even know what that meant, right? I just naturally gravitated towards men who I guess sat in a particular category that to me was attractive. And then I got to a certain age where I was looking back at like my old diaries as a kid and looking back at my doodles I was writing in my school books and stuff, and like names I was putting in love hearts. And once again, like I was noticing it was all these guys who I was watching on TV or reading about or whatever, who were just really sensitive, kind-hearted, emotional beings, and they were soft and gentle and loving people. And I'm not saying that heterosexual guys are not, obviously, but I feel like all of these men that I was crushing on as a kid were just so in touch with their like emotional side, and that to me as a child just looked beautiful, and I fell in love with that, and I was crushing on who they were as people. And even like the like soap actors I was writing in these books and talking about to my mum about how I fancied Jason from Coronation Street, I was saying it because they were such nice people. They were family people in the storylines, and it didn't actually like hit me until recently that makes a lot of sense against what I am like now, because I was so desperately just trying to find someone who I thought was fit and could crush on, but like my own mind just said, well, this person over here, like that person that no one seems to be looking at for some reason, they are crushable material. And then going on from that, obviously I got to a certain age where I was, you know, getting to know boys at school, and I'm still talking quite young here, so like I was always the girl who would give the person at the back of the classroom who never spoke, who was very quiet, a second chance. You know what I mean? The people that everyone seemed to like leave out and not want to talk to because they were the weirdo, or whatever like nasty title you want to give them. For some reason, for whatever reason, like I always felt drawn to them and I wanted to get to know them, and they were always the interesting character and the one who had a lot more to say and was so fascinating. And I would develop these crushes on the funny kid, not the hot kid, the funny kid, the goofy one. And that was probably like one of my biggest ever crushes, a kid that I crushed on for years and years because we went to school together for like 5 years. He was just hilarious. Like laughter is truly how you get to the core of my heart. If you make me laugh, I will keep you in my life for the rest of it. Like I just love to laugh. I love people who can make me laugh. And this kid, like he was just, I loved him because he just every day would make me cry with laughter. And I crushed on him so hard. And then one day when we got older, it was like one of our last years together because we were about to move on to high school. He said something about my weight, and he made a comment about my weight, how I was quite chubby. And I really remember that moment. As a 26-year-old almost, I remember that moment. It's so important to talk to kids with love and care because you don't realize how much you say will stick around. He was mentioning how it always looked like I was breathing out and I was never breathing in. And I still think about that to this day. And it was at that very moment where this like 4 to 5 year old crush just like shattered. And I know a lot of people, they gravitate towards the bad guy, and you know, disgusting kind of degrading comments like that sometimes can actually draw people towards guys, which is mental to me. But even as a kid who didn't have a lot of self-love at that time, it wasn't as though I was full of myself and I was like, how dare you call me that, like I'm the best, like bye. I still didn't feel the greatest about myself, especially when my crush is saying that to me. But there was just something about that moment where I thought, like, you're not a nice guy. Like, that is not something that someone who has a kind heart and soul would say. And it just went, like, I stopped liking this person. I just went off him. And when I think back to that moment, I'm like, good for you, Ellie. But it's not even a good for you moment because it wasn't a conscious thing. It just sort of happened. And then I got even older, I started going into high school, and I was realizing that this bad boy attitude was something that so many other people liked. I always thought it was like gross. It's weird for me to think that there are people who like bad energy, people who are bad people who treat you like in a degrading way. And I'm not saying that on my high horse. I'm saying that from a perspective of someone who really feels people's chemistry and energy in a room and wants to be around an uplifting spirit and soul, because that's what makes me turned on, that's what gets me going. And I think that personally is such an amazing trait, and if I'm going to pick anything about myself that I'm proud of being, it's my sexuality, because I just wish more people were like that. Because I find it's very kind of it's quite like respecting to yourself. It makes you naturally gravitate towards people that you know are good for you. And it's sort of like my own little radar that looks out for myself, if that makes sense, because I don't want to be in a room that feels nasty when it comes to the energy. So it keeps me away from those individuals who could potentially, you know, walk all over me, you know, disrespect me, etc. So yeah, as you can probably guess, for that reason, like, I've never had a one night stand. I've never been able to do that. I haven't even wanted to do that, so it's not like I'm like, oh, I wish I could just like have meaningless sex. Like, it's very hard for me to even be in the mood to have sex unless I have someone in my life who makes me feel that way. And even when it comes to, I mean, sorry to get like proper graphic here if you're not interested in hearing about these things, another little thing I thought about the other day, which made me crack up, to be fair, when I thought about my watching habits, as it were, and how I very first started watching porn, and even like what I watch now. Without going into massive details, the very first kind of introduction that I ever had to porn were actually this is really like weird for me to say, you know, like cam girls. You can get cam girls online, which are basically live streamers. That's basically it. They just live stream while like being semi-nude, and they chat to you. And like when you're a kid, you come across porn for the first time, right? So all of my friends were talking about all these crazy things they're watching, and how like a lot of that stuff could potentially be damaging, because like they would compare their bodies. But funny enough, like I never did that, because I wasn't really like looking at like what other people might be looking at, such as like the boobs and the bums, unless the people were nice. So I used to chat to cam girls as a kid, pretending I was a guy, because back then I didn't think girls would want to talk to other girls, because I was young, I didn't really understand what being gay was. So there was me making a conversation and just getting to know people, and if they were nice, I would come back and like want to talk to them. So like all these other people were like, oh, just get your boobs out, like come on, show us your bum. And there's me typing like, oh, have you had a good day? If she was like nice and really like friendly and stuff, I was like, oh yeah, like I feel attracted to this person. So I often think back to that, and once again, at the time you don't think anything of it. You just think, I'm just drawn to this section of porn for some reason. I can't really work out why, but it's that connection. Once again, it's that need to like interact, to get to know. It's that typical like, oh, I watch porn for the plot line. I am a living example for watching porn for the plot line. I'm saying this in public. There could be anyone listening to me right now thinking I'm actually crazy. Obviously, like, I was a kid, I couldn't pay for like private sessions, and I didn't even want private sessions. I remember getting insulted though. I was like, oh my God, I've just made such a nice conversation with Holly. Why has she gone off with Max in a private session? How dare she leave me? So yeah, moving on from that, and I think I've spoken about this on my channel before, I do mostly only watch hentai. Otherwise, you're probably just going to get me watching, like, I'll be that person who watches the same porn star. I find it very hard to enjoy a randomer having sex with a randomer, but that's why I'm a big fan of hentai, because there's no actual person there. They don't exist. I don't have to make a connection with them. I mean, other things come into it as well. Like, I'm a big fan of sound effects, and I'm a big... This video got really weird really quick. And I guess the styles of hentai anime characters. What am I doing? I need to really watch what I'm saying. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to hear from you guys whether this is something that you've resonated with, and perhaps you've learned this is a part of you that you haven't discovered properly yet, or maybe you're not necessarily interested in giving it a label. I'd just like to hear how you feel about it. I think if you are interested and if you are wondering whether this is part of your own identity, like I said earlier, when I had friends who were saying like, oh, who do you fancy? Like, oh, do you like Zac Efron? Although I do like him now because I know him as an actual person rather than Troy Bolton from High School Musical. I always found myself saying to my friends, oh, I don't know him yet. I don't know him as a person. I'm not really sure. And oh, that's another thing. Can I just say, someone can be hot as shit. They can tick every single box externally that I've ever wanted, that I've ever looked for. And I mean it, everything. But if they're not a nice person, it's almost as though my eyes change what I see. And it's not in the same way as like when you're on drugs and things like go distorted and blur, like you see things incorrectly. It's not really in that same wavelength. It's more that I can see that you're a good looking person, like I understand you're a good looking person, but like my pull towards you and like my feelings kind of disconnect and they kind of like barrier up. I don't get like all googly eyed and I don't act stupid around you even though you're really attractive, and you know, typically that would make someone act a bit like dumb around someone they find really good looking. All of that just goes away because your energy doesn't meet up to your external being, your external existence. And it doesn't mean a demi is always going to date someone who's unconventionally attractive, by the way, because the external attraction can draw someone towards them, for sure, of course it can. As human beings, we want to be around things that are aesthetically pleasing to us, so we'll be drawn towards that person, but then try and make a connection with that person because we are drawn towards them physically. So that doesn't mean we don't have an external type. FYI. It's usually just a big old bonus when someone's good looking and a nice person. And obviously when someone's a nice person, for a lot of people, not just demis, their little quirks and things about them shine a bit better. Like their eyes look nicer, their hair looks cuter, and their smile looks nicer when they're just a nice, genuine human being. Does that make sense? Anyway, I feel like I've waffled on this for too long. So let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this kind of video where I go out and about and just chat with you about my feelings and we just discuss these kinds of topics together, then let me know in the comment section. Let me know what yours is. It might be a world of difference. You might be asexual. You might be coming from a perspective that is very different to me, but all conversations welcome. Make sure you subscribe to this channel to be notified every time I make a brand new video like this one. Like this video if you want to see me do more like this, and join me on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram to see behind the scenes stuff. I also have tarot readings. If you want to book a tarot reading with me, you can book one on my tarot reading Instagram or my tarot reading Facebook page. All those links are down there. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you soon.